Welcome to Dad Perfect, a podcast for busy dads and our favorite heroes, the wives who stand with them. Dads who understand that investing in your family is the greatest investment you can ever make. Dads who are ready to dig deep and become the perfect dad for your family. To become Dad Perfect. Hi everybody, welcome to the Dad Perfect podcast. This is episode 9, and I'm David Rasmussen, your host. Thank you so much for joining me today. I want to welcome all of you who are listening for the first time. And as always, I want to extend a special welcome to the wives who are joining us. As fathers, we know that we truly are nothing without you. Today, we will be introducing the principle Unconditional Love, which is the 7th of our 9 core principles of perfectly devoted dads. So to begin, I want you to imagine in your mind for a moment an image of what you would call the ideal man. And when you envision this man, I want you to think about the first word that comes to your mind. What word describes this man to you? To be honest, I'd be surprised if that word was loving. It's because today, in today's society, we don't think of men. That's not the first thing that comes to mind when we think of man is loving. So why are we talking about it today? Why are we talking about love today? We're men. This isn't something we talk about a lot. Love is often a topic reserved for our wives, and as men, we kind of avoid it. Maybe it's too touchy-feely. It's something that we don't feel comfortable with, and sometimes we even have a hard time saying the word love. But this is exactly why we're talking about it. We, as fathers, need to make love a much greater part of our lives. We need to become men who truly are filled with love. But why do we need to do that? What is love, and why is it important for dads to understand this? So we use the word love often, but I'm afraid it is misunderstood very frequently. Love gets confused very often with infatuation, desire, and physical intimacy. It gets warped into things, sometimes they're destructive, right? And when love is misunderstood, unfortunately, it can be used very negatively. It can be used to manipulate, it can be used to hurt, it can be used to punish. So when we don't understand love and what it really is and how to develop love in our homes, we actually run the risk of hurting our families with this false understanding of love. It can be detrimental, harmful, and very damaging. But on the other hand, when we as fathers understand what love really is and our role in building a culture of love in the home, then love becomes a powerful force for greatness in our homes. Love gives us a reason to be great and to do great things, not just us, but our wives and our children. It builds strong, deep, lasting relationships that strengthen us and lift us throughout life and life's challenges. So I want to dive in to what I call the 6 truths versus myths of love in the home. This was a difficult thing for me to prepare for this podcast and give this little preface here. This was hard. Love is a very complicated thing, but it's also very simple. And there are these myths versus truths that are important to talk about. It was hard to put it into very concise stories and language, so bear with me as I go through this. I will do my best to explain these myths and truths in a way that is helpful, that is easy to understand, and will be useful to you. So please bear with me. This will probably be a longer podcast. If it goes too long, I'll split it into 2. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so the first myth that I would like to talk about is this myth that love is something that must be earned. Love is not a luxury. It's not reserved only for those choice people that somehow merit receiving love from someone else. I don't know where this myth comes from, but there's this idea that love isn't something that we inherently deserve, but it has to be earned. But that's not it. The truth is, loving and being loved is actually core to who we are. It is human nature to crave love, and I believe it is part of our divine selves. We were created to love and to be loved. For example, love is such a basic human need that history is full of stories where people have sacrificed food, water, shelter, and even their lives for love. I want to share an example of that in my own life. My grandmother on my mother's side passed away in January. This was back 20 years ago or so, but she passed away in January of that year from cancer. Now, her husband, my grandfather, was a very loving father, very devoted. He's always been a good example to me, what I would call a very humble and meek man, but also very principled and valued. And I think he was getting close. He was actually, I think, in his young 90s. So he wasn't young, but he missed my grandma a lot. When she passed away, and over the course of the next few months, he just withered away, and eventually he died on Mother's Day. Now, I know there are probably a lot of scientific reasons, but as I watched my grandpa after my grandma passed away, I watched him, and I would go to visit him periodically, and he just missed her. He missed her deeply. He would always ask about her, and he had dementia. He would forget things. And it was the hardest thing when he would ask, "Where's Belle?" That's what her nickname was. "Where's Belle?" And there were times where there was just no way around it. We would tell him, "Grandpa, Belle passed away in January," and you would see the grief consume him again and again. And I look at my grandpa and I think, here's a man who loved his wife so much that he died for a broken heart. That need for love for him was so great that he died with a broken heart because he missed her so deeply. So this type of love is at the core, the center of who we are. It's at the core, the center of relationship. It's at the center of our families. Families full of love thrive. It's not hard to understand that. So families that are full of love will thrive. On the contrary, families that are devoid of love will dissolve, and often tragically. Our wife and our children need to be loved by us. They need to be loved by the husband, us, their father. This love ignites feelings inside of us that can come from no other source. There is no substitute for love in a relationship. Love in our homes ignites feelings of pure joy and happiness, belonging and comfort, safety and security. As the father of the home, it is up to you, it's up to us to establish this culture of love in our homes. Now that may sound funny. We may think, the mothers, it's their responsibility. They're the best at it. And to be honest, they are. Mothers by nature seem to be filled with love. It just comes naturally for them. We'll sometimes call it their motherly instinct or motherly intuition. But we as dads have to make that conscious decision, the conscious effort to join our wives in building this culture of love in our homes, a culture that is centered on this unconditional love. If we don't join our wives, it becomes a one-sided effort. We have to make that choice. We have to come to them. We have to be a part of this culture of love in our homes. And a home where every family member's need for love is fulfilled is a home with abundance. It is a home with happiness. It is a home with safety. It is secure. It is a home where we thrive. But it has to be intentional. You must join with your wife to build a home filled with love. So that is the truth number one, that love is needed by everyone. Everyone in your home needs this love. Your wife and all of your children need it, and you have to intentionally make it happen in your home. That brings us to the myth and truth number two, and that is that the myth is that love just happens to us, right? How often do we hear people say that I fell in love, or we fell in love or out of love, as if they stumbled into it and then stumbled out of it? We talk about love as if it is something that we can't control. It either happens to us and is part of our life, or it isn't, and that's the myth. Love is not out of our control. It isn't something that just happens to us. We do not fall into love. The truth is that love is a choice. Love is intentional. I think I've shared this example in a previous podcast, but our family enjoys the movie Dan in Real Life. And there's a line in there where the young man who is trying to date Dan's daughter says to Dan, "Love isn't a feeling, it's an ability." And I love that line because I think there's a lot of truth to it. Although love really is a feeling, right? It's something we feel. It's a very deep feeling, but it is an ability. It's something that we have to intentionally develop and choose to do in our lives. So our children come to us with their own personalities. They come with passions and talents. They come with quirk and challenges, right? And as fathers, we have to choose to love each one of them for who they really are, right? It's critical that we make a conscious choice to love every single one of our children. We have to love them for who they are. Don't wish them to be something they're not. It's important that as we show our love for them, that we help them to achieve goals that are appropriate for them, that help them to thrive. We need to choose to love them when it's hard. When they get to be preteens and teenagers and even adults, it can be sometimes hard to choose to love your children. But we have to do it. We have to make sure that love is always at the forefront of our minds. We have to choose to love them even when they say they hate us. And we have to choose to love them when they hurt us. You must do this. You have to do this. I don't know how to emphasize this enough. You must choose to do this, to make it part of who you are, choose to do what it takes to say and show your love to your family. Especially choose to stay in love with your wife, because you have to remember it is your choice. Love is a choice. I don't believe you can fall out of love. And I say fall like with air quotes, right? You cannot fall out of love. It's impossible. You can only choose not to love anymore. So imagine powering it is to your family when they know that you choose to love them, no matter what. It is your choice. You are making that decision. It's not something that's being imposed upon you. It is your choice to love your children and your wife, no matter what. Imagine how great that can be for your family, how great it will make your family feel, how close it will bring you, and the great things that you will be able to do as a family, and the hard things that you and your children will be able to overcome in life, all because they know that you choose to love them and that you will always love them. Okay, number 3. The third myth is that love is passion. It's intimacy. It's excitement. It's those feelings that you get when you see someone for the first time. It's that twitterpation. That's a term that I love. Use with our kids, twitterpation. These are all symptoms of love, yes. And when you love your wife, you are passionate with her. You are intimate with her. You're excited to be with her. And these are all great things, and they're important in a healthy relationship. But just don't believe the lie that these things are love. Love is so much more nuanced and complete than just these feelings. True love is about sacrifice. It's about service. It's about caring more for the well-being of others than for yourself. It's about finding greater joy in their lives and their success than in your own. So love is about them. It's not about you. So these feelings that we have, these passions that we have, and the emotions, these are all very good. These are all important. But you have to remember they are more or less symptoms, if you want to think of it that way. They are symptoms of your love that you feel. They are not the love itself. To kind of give you an example, think of an elderly couple that's been together for a very, very long time. If passion and intimacy are love, how is it that someone who is in their 80s and 90s can still be so deeply in love? And in most cases, when you talk to them, they will say they are more in love at that age than they were in their 20s or 30s or 40s. And that is because the truth is love is not simply these emotional feelings of passion and intimacy and excitement that you have towards somebody. And far too often, that is what we say when we are falling out of love, going back to the previous myth that we are falling out of love. It's we don't feel that same passion, intimacy, and excitement that we did when we were younger. I want to share my situation, with my wife. We've been married for 23 years. To put it bluntly, our bodies change. Our energy levels change. Things change about us physically. But I can say now, without question, that my love for her is stronger and deeper than it has ever been. And that's because love is not about just passion, intimacy, and excitement. Love is about sacrifice. It's about devotion. It's about commitment. It's about your choice to serve them, to give 100% of yourself to this relationship. Again, I want to emphasize passion and intimacy in a relationship are very important. Just make sure that they are in the right place in your relationship. They exist because of your love. They are not your love. So if you're not feeling the passion in your relationship that you used to have or that you would like to have now, please don't make the mistake of believing that you are falling out of love. And just remember that love is not passion. Passion is a result of love. You build stronger and deeper relationships of love in your family by focusing on serving your spouse, serving your children, by sacrificing for them, by helping them, by being committed to them and being devoted to them. This is how you strengthen the love in your home and in your relationship with your wife. It is not about the passion. Passion is the icing on the cake, but the cake is the love that you choose to have, the service and sacrifice that you choose to give to your family. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. We are going to split this podcast in half. It ended up being much longer than I like a typical podcast to be, so we're going to end here after Myth versus Truth number 3, and we will pick up with Myth versus Truth number 4 in the next podcast. We hope you'll join us then. Thank you for listening.